So, if you've been into Christian music for the last, we'll say 20 years, and you haven't heard of Chris Tomlin, or if you're just now getting into Christian music and you're trying to check out, who's a big name in Christian music, well, Chris Tomlin is one of those names that will easily jump off the page and maul you with how many big worship singles and stuff that he's put out, either written or made famous, that are being used in churches today. I've talked about his second album and his third album. Now it's time to go back before I go any further and take a look at his first album. And his first album is The Noise We Make. This was put out in 2001 by Sparrow Records, Six Step Records, more specifically that subdivision of them. And of course, nowadays, Sparrow is also a part of the Capital Christian Music Group. I'm not sure if they were back then. I can't remember if the two have always been together or if they merged at some point, but either way, that's the way it is now. Enough talk about that, though. That's all kind of business jargon. As far as this album goes, a lot of people don't really know that this album even exists. I didn't know it existed until right before I recorded my review for Not to Us, so it's pretty exclusive, although there are songs on this album that I've heard before. I just didn't know that they came from this album, and we'll talk about those up in just a second. But there are 12 tracks on this album. I'm going to try to talk about these as quickly as I can. Track 1 is the title track, The Noise We Make. It's like a fast rock, contemporary-ish kind of song, and the song is directed at God as sort of a we've come together to worship type of a song. It's just, there's really not much else to it. It's a nice listen to, and I could definitely see, especially like within youth movements back in the day, how this might have been a good song to kind of get the kids in the mood, so to speak. I'm not so sure how this would work on the adults of the day, but those kids are adults nowadays, so I don't know. Maybe there's the trade-off. Anyway, track 2 is Forever. Now, I know people have heard this song before. This has been, this is a song that probably without this song could have been a very different story for Chris Tomlin. This is a song that he needed to kind of help keep his name alive, because it wouldn't be until 2004 till he wrote or recorded How Great Is Our God. I don't remember if he wrote it or not. Maybe he co-wrote it. Anyway, about Forever, though, it's fast, kind of like The Noise We Make. It's really driven by this tom groove that's going on, and that pretty much continues throughout the duration of the entire song. The song is about God's love and faithfulness and how those are forever. The last chorus changes. It goes from a third-person perspective throughout the whole song to a first-person perspective, which is kind of nice. But yeah, it's a really great song. It's probably the best song on the album, to be perfectly honest with you. But if you somehow haven't heard this song before, like Chris's version of it, or if you've never heard it in a church before, you should check it out. This was the definitive Forever song before Carrie Job ever released her song called Forever, which is totally different from this one. We're gonna move on now to track 3, which is Kindness. The tempo pulls back a little bit. The song feels flowy, which is nice. Kind of a drastic change after Forever, but it's still fine for what it is. The song is written as an intimate prayer in the verses, while the chorus gives God praise. I should note, giving praise is kind of what Chris Tomlin does. He's more of a worship leader than he is like a CCM artist like Mercy Me or something like that. He's more of the worship kind of guy. So a lot of these songs are going to be like praise songs. So I apologize if I kind of glance over them in terms of their variety, because there really isn't much. Track 4 is America. This one's kind of like a mid-tempo sort of a song. It's pretty reserved in the verses, and there's like this kind of like this filter put on the vocals and on the instruments and everything in the verses, kind of keeps everything muffled. And then in the chorus, it's supposed to be a little bit more energetic, but there's not energy per se. It's just like they take the filter off and you can hear everything normally, and so there's where your difference is. It's kind of an interesting choice in my opinion, but it still works for what it does. It still sounds good. Basically, the song, it's a song of like this coming revival that the singer's singing about. Is this revival revival is going to be caused by the presence of God, and talks about different miracles that are going to happen and everything. Basically, it's a call to revival without actually saying call to revival. It's more about kind of trying to get people stirred up, saying it's like, the Lord himself is coming to America and we're going to see change happen and everything. Revival movements were really big, especially among youth back then. They still are now, but I remember being a kid that time. This would have been the perfect kind of a song used in those environments. It's a good song for what it is, for real. Track 5 is The Wonderful Cross. This is also a mid-tempo song, but it's softer, so it definitely gives it a different feel. And the whole song feels like a hymn, and I was looking at the lyrics, and it almost written like it's a hymn. Maybe this is an actual hymn that I've just never heard of before. I'm not really sure, but it still sounds good. The song, of course, talks of the sacrifice of Jesus, as you pretty much is mandated whenever you're talking about the cross. Also mentions those who come to the cross will find grace and, a new life that's given to them. It's like, basically, let me rephrase that. Specifically in the chorus, it says, you come to the cross to die so that you might live. That's the kind of new life it's talking about, which is a deep theological discussion I'm not going to get into in a music review, but that's basically what the song is talking about. And this song is very interesting because I had never heard it before, obviously, and singing with Chris Tomlin in this song is Matt Redman. And Matt Redman is arguably one of the best Christian music songwriters of the modern generation, and I never knew that Matt Redman had did a duet with Chris Tomlin before. I know they've co-wrote on stuff together, but I never knew that they actually sang a project together, so this was like music to my ears. So if you've never heard, or if you've always wanted to hear a Chris Tomlin Matt Redman duo, here you go. This is it, and it's a very good one at that. Actually, ironically, Matt is the one who does most of the singing in it. But anyway, track 6 is Captured. It's got a similar feel to the previous song, but there's a pretty heavy shaker going on it, so it kind of makes it feel faster than what it really is. And I believe there's also the presence of a slider guitar. There's definitely kind of that kind of thing going on, so I'm pretty sure there's a slider guitar present there. The singer claims he has been captured in God's love, and that's pretty the gist of the song. It's a nice song to listen to and everything. It's not going to get on a top 25 best Chris Tomlin song list or anything like that, but it's pretty good. Track 7 is Be Glorified. The tempo on this one to me is about the same as America, so kind of a similar feel, but definitely not with the same effects. Basically, as he sings praises, the singer wants God to be glorified through him, i.e. the singer. But in other words, God, let your glory shine through me, and let me be that example, or, it's not how he says it in the song, but that's to try to kind of help give an understanding of what he's asking for. Again, good song. I would say all these are good songs. They're, could slightly, I'd say maybe slightly more memorable than most of the tracks in Not to Us, but yeah, I don't want to beat a dead horse. So track 8 is The Happy Song. And you've probably heard The Happy Song before. I'm pretty sure this is a Paul Baloche song. If Paul Baloche didn't write this, then I know he did this song well before Chris Tomlin did, but I'm pretty sure that this is a Paul Baloche song. And it's slower than Paul Baloche's version, and it's kind of makes the song pretty disorienting to me because of that. It has this country riff Chris's version does at the beginning of it, and there's some harmonica that's kind of thrown in there. It definitely gives it a different feel. Anyway, if you've never heard the song before, basically the singer's filled with joy. He could sing and dance forever. It's a praise song. That's what Chris does. That's what Paul does. That's why and Paul really made this song famous. I love the tempo of it. I mean, Chris's version is fast, don't get me wrong. It's got that same boom chuck feel, but it's not as fast. And this song really, because of the energy, it's called The Happy Song, and because of it practically demands energy, and this version of it really just doesn't do that part of it justice. Track, what are we on now? 9, Need You Now. There's really not much to say on this one. The singer's feeling lost and is crying out to God. Is pretty much the gist of the song. For me, I don't think the song does the best job in like kind of fitting the theme of it. For one thing, there's too much background music for this type of a song, I think, and there's not enough desperation in the delivery of the vocals. Because typically with these kinds of songs where, you know, someone's lost and crying out to God and everything like that, you know, you kind of hear more desperation either in the lyrics themselves or in the delivery of the vocals. And I just kind of feel like the song is sung generic, and then adding, you know, having all those, you know, heavy layers of instrument stuff going on in the background, it doesn't set the mood very well. And maybe he wasn't trying to go for a super heavy, desperate type of a feel and everything, but I don't know. I feel like there was definitely some contradictory things going on here that it just doesn't really resolve itself. But enough of that. Track 10 is This Is Our God. This is an acoustic kind of a song here, and basically the song lists different things, you know, that God is and does. The chorus, I'll mention specifically the chorus because it's pretty much the same thing over and over, is this is the one we have waited for. And of course, that's a reference to Jesus being the Messiah, the long-awaited promised Messiah of the Jewish people, and then ultimately all of the Gentiles who come to believe as well. Track 11 is Forever Radio Remix. So, you know, it's the same song as Forever, obviously. I don't think I really need to explain that, but there are definitely some changes that come with it. There's a shorter intro. The drums are taken out or of certain sections or reduced in other sections. There's backup singers that replace, like the choir is pretty much taken out of it altogether until the very end, and instead of Chris just singing in the chorus, there's some backup singers singing with him as well. And I like the effect of of having backup singers singing with Chris. I think that does work well. I don't like the tom groove especially being taken out in certain sections of the song, because I think it feels like it loses its momentum when that happens. And then with the choir coming back in at the end, I mean, it kind of comes out of nowhere. You're not really expecting a choir in this version of the song, and then all of a sudden they just kind of show up, and, you know, once they're finally in and established, it sounds fine, but I don't know, it just kind of comes out of nowhere. The whole version seems kind of chopped up and everything. It's just, it's not terrible, but I don't see what was wrong with the original version. You could have even taken the backup singer element from this one, put it in that one. You could have even had a better version of the original Forever. I think that's what they should have done. But this version isn't terrible, but I don't see why this one was more radio worthy than the other one. But anyway, and the final track is We Fall Down, and this one was recorded live very clearly. The first half of the song is sung in some other language. I've heard this language associated with the song before, but I have no idea what it is. So maybe somebody in the comments can tell me what it is. But once, you know, as far as the lyrics go, it's a very simple song. It's about laying at the feet of Jesus and worshiping him. Pretty simple stuff. It's a very famous song from that, you know, kind of mid 90s to early 2000s, like when like a lot of different worship songs were getting poured out. This was one of them. And that's really all the tracks. You know, listening to this debut definitely makes me appreciate how far Chris has come. You know, you can see the talent as a worship leader on display in this album, but it's definitely still like humble beginnings compared to how far he gets and later into his career with some of the songs that he's come out with. I would say this album is still better than Not to Us, though. There's still kind of a sameness problem that Not to Us has, but I think there's also some more substance. Maybe it's lyrically, maybe musically, not really sure, but I feel like there's definitely some more substance. So I'm going to give it a 3.1 out of 5. You know, definitely not Chris's best, but it was a good enough debut, especially for the times, and having a couple good singles off of this one, and also off of Not to Us, because Not to Us did have enough. It had the title track of Not to Us to kind of keep fans satisfied until 2004 rolled around. Those two albums did their job of kind of establishing, Chris's identity, that he's going to be a worship artist, as opposed to more of a rate. I mean, he's definitely a radio artist, but as opposed to having kind of those CCM type of songs, he's definitely more on the worship genre, and that's kind of what this helps sets the foundation for. My favorites off of this album are Forever. Again, I think it's the best song on the album. America is really good. I've listened to America for several years and never knew it was on this album till I first started looking up information about the album, however many years ago it was. And I'm also gonna include The Wonderful Cross in the favorites, just because it's a good song still, just for what it is. But again, just the shock of hearing a duet between Chris Tomlin and Matt Redman and how good they sound together is just, it's so worth to listen to musically, just for that. And as far as the Happy Song and We Fall Down are concerned, those are great songs. I definitely recommend you go and listen to those songs, but there are better versions of those songs. So I also encourage you to find better versions of those songs. Find Paul Baloche's version of the Happy Song. We Fall Down, trying to remember, I think Michael W. Smith did that song. Possibly, maybe Shane and Shane did it, but there's a lot of different people who have done this song, and I think that that are better versions of it. But the songs themselves are still very good and deserve to be listened to. Yeah, that's pretty much all I really have for this one. Thank you guys very much for listening. And the next album we're going to be taking a look at, since we're going to skip over album 2 and 3, no need to go back and re-review those, that would be senseless. So we're going to go to album 4, which is See the Morning, and that's going to be fun because there's a lot of songs that got played on the radio, and ironically, compared to other songs that Chris released since that album, they kind of don't stack up in comparison, but they're still good songs, so that'll be fun to talk about. And then after that, we're gonna get into Hello Love after that. I believe that's what it's called, Hello Love, and that's another album that is going to have several worship songs that Chris definitely made famous, and you're really going to start to see Chris's career kind of go from being really, being a really good to suddenly starting to become legendary, and it's going to expand even further beyond that album. But that's all for other reviews another time. So if you guys have any reviews or music that you would like me to review, please leave a comment. Otherwise, I'll just end this off as I usually do by saying, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and as always, take care.